Welcome to the Saucy Scribes podcast.
I'm Alex, your resident book psycho.
I'm Ashley, your crystal-loving cat lady.
And I'm Allie, your aspiring author.
Welcome to the deep dive of chapters 1 through 9 of Fourth Wing.
Yay!
We
so
are
excited.
So excited to start deep diving this series because Fourth Wing is the whole reason why Allie and Ashley are basically here and agreed to do this podcast with me.
The whole reason.
Yep, 100%.
Each week, as promised, we've concocted a cocktail that best captures this stretch of chapters. If you're new to Saucy Scribes podcast, you can find our weekly cocktail every Monday on our Instagram. Does everyone have their parapet and peril? Nothing screams welcome to Basgiath like that death-defying balance beam over the river. This cocktail is smoky, spicy, and just the right amount of dangerous. Kind of like walking the parapet, but with more mezcal and less death. With a hit of jalapeno and a splash of citrus, it's the perfect drink to sip while screaming, "Why is Basgiath like this?" into the void. So pour yourself a glass, say a little prayer to the words, and get ready to dive in. Cheers!
Cheers!
Our Patreon is officially live. If you love the show, consider becoming a first-year scribe for $5 a month. You'll get early access to ad-free episodes, a digital cocktail booklet for each book we cover, and an exclusive printable dust sleeve for each book designed to mimic the look of vintage leather-bound books. Perfect for dressing up your romantasy shelf. This membership is a way to support the show and help us continue bringing this magical, messy, and swoony content to life. And if you've got a moment, we'd love if you rated and reviewed the podcast wherever you are listening.
Before we dive in, we need to give a spoiler warning. We will be discussing the entire series, including any extra POV chapters in the re-releases and anything Rebecca Yarros has said in interviews. If we reference another series spoiler, we will give a spoiler sound in the episode so you can skip ahead.
And as a final note before we jump in, the fantasy romance world is full of magic and mayhem, but it also doesn't shy away from heavy themes. That means the books we cover may include emotional trauma, violence, or mature content that could be upsetting. For this particular book, Rebecca Yarros gives her own trigger warning, which you can read right before the maps in the book. So consider this your cozy but clear blanket trigger warning from your saucy scribes. Feel free to step away if needed. Your well-being comes first. All right, scribes, let's get into it.
All right, first up, welcome to the wide world of magic, our favorite part of week 1, where we temporarily set aside the dragons, danger, and devastatingly attractive riders. Yes. To take a breath and look at the world we are diving into. And this month, it's the world of Navarre. This is where we break down the rules of the realm and explore the inner workings of Navarre. We'll look at how the magic works, who holds the power, and why this brutal, cutthroat system is somehow so addictive. Before the wings unfurl, the lightning crackles, and the slow burn kisses set us ablaze, we're asking, what kind of world does Violet Sorrengail live in, and what kind of magic might break it wide open? So sharpen your daggers, whisper to your dragons, and whatever you do, don't trip on the parapet. This is Wide World of Magic 4th Wing Edition. Welcome to Navarre, a magical military kingdom with a war problem and major trust issues. For the last 400 years, they've been at war with their neighbors, Pormeal, because nothing says diplomacy like dragons and death. Our story in book 1 mostly takes place inside Basgiath War College, aka the most elite and terrifying Hogwarts meets Hunger Games campus ever created. This is where Navarre trains their future dragon riders, scribes, healers, and infantry. But let's be honest, if you're not a rider, you're basically a background character. Most students are either volunteered, voluntold, or straight up thrown in as punishment. The Riders Quadrant only accepts volunteers, unless you're a kid from Tyrrendor, aka the rebel province that tried to dip out of Navarre about 5 years ago. In that case, congrats! You're getting tossed into Dragon Survivor whether you want it or not. Publicly, this whole situation doesn't exist, but privately, it's a power play dipped in political cover-up and thanks to one General Sorrengail. Navarre is made up of 6 provinces: Moraine, Lucerys, Deaconshire, Elsum, Chaldeer, the capital, and Tyrrendor, home of the rebellion and general angst. Across the border, Pormeal is split into Breivik, Signesen, and Krovla, which sound like they'd slap as dragon names, but are actually just getting wrecked by magical creatures called Venin. Speaking of, enter the Barrens, the creepy wasteland east of both kingdoms, drained of all magic and vibes. It's where the Great War started 600 years ago and where the Venins seem to respawn like it's a cursed fantasy map. Oh, and the big twist, the Paromish are not trying to invade Navarre. They're trying to get help from the Venin, the real threat that's out there. That's right. Navarre has been purposely fighting the wrong enemy for centuries because they erased all the records and burned the books. Classic military industrial gaslighting. And remember that rebellion we mentioned? The province of Tyrrendor rebelled against Navarre to try and step in to help the Paromish. The thanks they got was Duke Xaden Riorson and all of his men and women being sentenced to death by dragonfire. Next up is the magic system. Magic in this world doesn't come from fairy dust or chosen ones. It comes from the ground or the sky, theories incoming. But try and wield it on your own and it will eat your soul. That's right, you need a dragon or a griffin to channel magic safely, or so we've been told. Bonding with a dragon is step one to survival at Basgiath. You don't get to choose your dragon, they choose you. Try to force it, you die. Try to pet one without permission, you die. Try to vibe too hard near one, you probably die. Once bonded, the dragon shares its magic and gives you a signet, aka a superpower that's custom made to reflect your inner soul. We're talking everything from lightning powers to memory thievery and the occasional mind-reading nightmare known as an intrinsic, which sounds cool until you realize it gives you an instant death sentence. The rider-dragon bond is sacred and symbiotic. If your dragon dies, you die. If you die, your dragon might also die from heartbreak. Depends on how emotionally attached they were to you and how powerful they are. No pressure. These riders are also responsible for maintaining the wards that keep Navarre safe. No bonded dragons equals no wards equals welcome the Venin to the plot. Meanwhile, Poromil has their own creatures, griffins, who offer lighter diet magic to their bonded flyers. It's like a knockoff version of the riders, complete with cool skills, but no ward weaving, which is why Poromil is basically an open door for Venin chaos. Venin, by contrast, are creepy magic vampires who siphon power directly from the source like it's a cursed beer tap. But there's a catch. That unfiltered magic rots their souls, gives them glowing red veins, and generally makes them look like demonic cherry Twizzlers. And lastly, the politics. Navarre isn't just a war machine. It's a fully functioning, gaslight, gatekeeping, dragon riding society. Power is inherited, secrets are currency, and people are either soldiers or problems. The government's favorite hobbies? Rewriting history, public executions by dragonfire, and totally unrelated accidents when someone asks too many questions. The Scribe Quadrant hoards information like it's gold, but what they don't realize is that the information is all highly edited bullshit. Their entire history has been rewritten to leave out anything to do with Venin. How did they not think this would eventually become a problem? Who knows? Inside Basgiath, the students are constantly being killed, manipulated, or manipulated into being killed. But hey, it's character development. It's turning them into Kingdom's greatest warriors and dragon riders. And leading it all is Violet's mom, General Sorengale, who is definitely hiding something. Okay, maybe also hiding everything. As Violet peels back the layers of lies, betrayal, and magic BS, one thing becomes clear. The real war isn't just outside the kingdom, it's inside it, and it's personal. This is just the tip of the iceberg, or the edge of the parapet, if you will, when it comes to the magic and mayhem of Navarre. Don't worry, though. We're in this for the long haul. We're covering all 3 books, and next month, we're marching straight into Poromil territory with all that fiery fallout from Iron Flame, and we'll be adding to our wide world of magic. And when Onyx Storm drops, we're packing our bags for the Isle Kingdoms, because as Violet uncovers more secrets, so do we. Basically, the deeper she goes, the more world building and magic we will also cover. So now that we've mapped out the brutal world of Basgiath and met a few of its deadliest players, it's time to zoom in and see how this entirely unhinged journey kicks off from the very first page. Ashley, take us into the summary of chapters 1 through 9, because the death toll starts early, the stakes are sky high, and honestly, we need a second to mentally prepare for the parapet.
Welcome to Basgiath War College, where day 1 starts with a solid chance you might die. We open right in the thick of it with Violet Sorengale, who is absolutely not built for this world. She's 20, small, bookish, and has been preparing her whole life to become a scribe. But her mother, who also happens to be the cold, calculating general of the War College, decides she's joining the Riders Quadrant instead. Violet doesn't get a say, And to be clear, this isn't a fun dragon riding school. It's fucking brutal. Most of these kids will be dead within 3 days. Her sister Mira tries to fight for her. Her best friend Dane wants to protect her, and everyone around her seems to think she's going to break. But Violet, she decides to stay. And from that moment on, she's constantly underestimated, doubted, and targeted. The first major trial, the parapet, just a narrow, storm-soaked stone bridge 1,000,000 feet up that you have to cross with no help, no magic, and no safety net. People fall, people are pushed. Violet makes it across by sheer will, brain power, and a little bit of luck. And that pretty much sets the tone for her entire journey. She's not the strongest, but she is definitely the smartest, and she is playing the long game. What I love is that this book doesn't waste time sugarcoating anything. People die, and they die often. Violet is immediately being hunted by other cadets, especially a sadistic nightmare named Jack Barlow.
Fucking Jack Barlow.
That fucking guy. And the odds are completely stacked against her. So what does she do? She uses what she has. She trades history help for combat lessons. She poisons her opponents before sparring matches. She forms alliances with cadets like Rhiannon and Sawyer. She leans on the only tool no one can take from her, her mind. And then there's Xaden Riorson, the broody, powerful, rebellion-marked third year who absolutely should be her enemy. His father led a failed uprising and was executed by Violet's mother. So yeah, the tension is real. But he's also the only one who doesn't treat her like she's fragile. He spars with her, taunts her, calls her violence, which, let's be honest, is hot, and constantly challenges her to rise up. Where Dane is all about protection and escape, Xaden is about pushing Violet to stand in her own power. And it's working. One of the biggest themes that's already coming through is how much Violet has been shaped by the people around her. People who love her, but have also told her in every possible way that she's not enough, that she can't do this, that she needs to be protected. Dane is sweet and well-meaning, but he represents her self-doubt. Every time he tries to get her to quit, it's like her internal voice saying, "You're not strong enough," out loud. Xaden, on the other hand, sees what she's capable of. He doesn't go easy on her, but he respects her. And for someone like Violet, who spent her whole life being dismissed, that recognition is powerful. By chapter 9, we see all of this come to a head. She spars with Xaden, and instead of humiliating her, he teaches her how to use her size and speed to her advantage. Later that night, Dane gives her a massage and then drops the bomb that he still wants her to quit and go back to the Scribes quadrant. Violet finally snaps because at this point, she doesn't want to survive for him. She wants to survive for herself.
Yes, girl.
All of this is happening under the looming threat of threshing, when dragons will choose or reject their riders. And let's not forget, dragons can read minds. So Violet's not just trying to stay alive, she's trying to prove she deserves to be here, even to creatures who can see straight through her. There's a clear line being drawn already between following the rules and following your instincts. Violet keeps finding herself in these gray areas where the moral thing and the lawful thing don't always align. But she never loses herself in it. She finds ways to bend the system without fully breaking her own code. That push-pull between survival and self-respect is what makes her arc so incredibly satisfying. All I have to say, the pacing of these first 9 chapters is brilliant. We're getting action, strategy, political tension, and that slow burn enemies to lovers heat. Rebecca Yarros does a beautiful job balancing world building with emotional stakes. The excerpts at the top of each chapter give us a deeper lore, but Violet's voice keeps everything grounded and accessible. Even when the world is burning around her, she's relatable, sharp, and determined. By the end of chapter 9, Violet's not just surviving. She's learning how to thrive. Not because anyone's saving her, because she's figuring out how to save herself. And that's where we'll leave things for chapters 1 through 9. Combat trials, deadly secrets, and more emotional trauma than should be legally allowed in a war college. But don't worry, we're just getting started. Because if you think surviving the parapet was wild, just wait until we start pulling at the threads underneath.
Exactly. So grab your notebooks, channel your inner scribe, and prepare to spiral with us. Welcome to Threads of Theory, the part of the show where we connect the dots, decode the dragon politics, and throw out bold, possibly unhinged theories that we might regret later. We're unraveling the story one wing beat at a time, and trust us, it's about to fly off the rails. Let's follow the threads.
Whew. Okay, I cannot wait to deep dive this story. But before we even get into chapter 1, we need to look at the inscription before the book even starts.
Yes.
I'm going to read it word for word. The following text has been faithfully transcribed from Navarian into the modern language by Jacinia Newlwart. curator of the Scribe Quadrant at Basgiath War College. All events are true, and names have been preserved to honor the courage of those fallen. May their souls be commended to Malik.
Okay.
So many fans out there feel like this is an ominous foreshadowing that Violet and Xaden do not make it out of the series alive because Jasenia is the one writing this. But I have to stop you right there. Everyone listening, I have to stop you right there.
Agreed.
Jasenia is transcribing it, all bold letters, from Navarian into the modern language, aka English, what we can read. That does not mean she's writing this story. She's translating it. The key word here, guys, that does not mean she's writing the story. She's translating it. If you look up the definition of transcribe, it means either a person converting spoken word into written text or converting text from one language into another. Meaning, Violet most likely is the original author of this book. That's in her POV. And the other POVs we get, I definitely see Violet being like, well, I was unconscious here, not present. So please, Xaden, fill in the blanks for me.
Well, see, this is why
Yes.
I took it as she was taking first person accounts from each person, documenting it, and then translating that from Navarian into a new language. Whatever that is. Obviously, English, I think, is the very easy, simple one to go to.
It just says she's transcribing it from Navarian into modern language. It doesn't. And transcribing usually means, like, they talk about it a lot. Jasenia talks about it a lot in the series about how she is transcribing all of the books in the archives from dead languages into languages that are not dead. So, and I think that's even the hint Rebecca Yarros gives us as like, this is something Jasenia does all the time.
Yeah.
And we don't speak we don't speak Navarian. No. And I think it was just like a cute way for her to intro the book of making you feel like you're in the world, to be like, oh, they speak Navarian. Because she has like a funny sense of humor like that. She talks about all the little things in the book she puts in like that all the time about how, you know, Panchek's one of the book he wrote was like when he was basically a cadet because he's so pigheaded. Yes. She loves to put like things like that in the book. And I feel like this is one of those things where she was just like, I'm going to be funny for the reader and be like, haha, you guys don't speak Navarian. So here's a little like inscription saying, this is why you can read the story, even though you speak English.
Yeah. Like, you're reading the translated version. Thanks, Jasenia.
It does not mean that there is ominous foreshadowing. It does not mean that Xaden and Violet are going to die. And also, Rebecca Yarros has said herself in interviews that she feels like she has to remind people that she is a contemporary romance writer, aka meaning usually the guy and the girl end up together at the end and are alive.
Yeah. Which we need.
That's also so crazy though, because like every single time that I've read that or heard it listening to like the audiobook or anything like that, I have never once thought like, oh, Xaden and Violet don't make it out because of this inscription. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Some people do die, which is why it says we commend their souls to Malik.
Yes,
as we know.
Well, ladies, let's rewind to where this whole wild ride begins. Conscription Day. Violet is heading to her mother's office, and we overhear her sister Mira begging their mom not to send Violet into the Riders Quadrant. And honestly, the first time you read this, it feels like Mira's just trying to protect her sweet, fragile little sister. But now, having read Iron Flame and Onyx Storm, this moment hits totally differently. Because when General Lilith Sorrengail says, Violet deals with more pain before lunch than you do in a whole week. If any of my children is capable of surviving the Riders Quadrant, it's her. She's not being cruel. She's telling the truth. Everyone thinks she's being cold or delusional, but in hindsight, she's the only one who actually sees Violet's full potential and understands where she'll be safest.
It's so nuts.
Oh, Lilith, you are a layered character.
I know. We love a nuanced character.
Not that Lilith is still the greatest mother in the universe, but
sure.
But
there's some redemption. There's a redemption arc.
Big redemption here for sure.
Yeah.
So that being said, Mira and Dane both act like they're the ones who know Violet best, but it's actually Lilith who sees her daughter clearly, even if Violet doesn't feel that way yet. And yes, in Iron Flame, we get that moment where Lilith admits Violet believes she's a mystery to her mother, but deep down, Lilith knows exactly who she is. So let's talk about Violet's pain. It's real, constant, and it's not just emotional. She has what we would recognize in our world today as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS, a disorder that affects connective tissue, causing things like joint dislocations, chronic pain, and extreme fatigue. Rebecca Yarros, the author, lives with this condition herself, which makes the representation all the more meaningful. In this book, it's framed as a result of a mysterious fever Lilith had while pregnant, which nearly killed them both. She even says, it's like that fever stole all your coloring along with your strength. But now that we know more about the Venin and their connection to corrupted magic, some fans believe that fever may not have been so innocent. Could it have been the result of a Venin attack? And if so, what does that mean for Violet's condition and abilities down the line?
I know. This is one of those things, especially coupled with her silver hair before Onyx Storm came out, that I was like convinced was true.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Absolutely. I think we texted about it. I was like,
Yeah. And I honestly, it still could be true. Even though her silver hair now we know has to do with the gods and not with this, it could still be true that Theophany attacked her mother while she was pregnant.
Yes.
Although I don't know in what universe you'd be sending a pregnant woman out on the front lines. But
also it's Lilith.
It's her. Yeah,
it's Lilith and Basgiath. So sure, I guess why not?
Yeah. Okay. So here's our theory question. Was Violet's condition just a tragic fluke, or is it something deeper, something magical, maybe even intentional? And what does it say that the person who set her on her path, her mother, might have known the truth all along?
I'm wondering if it's one of those things of like magic likes all things in balance that we hear a lot, and that maybe it was magic trying to tip the scales, because we know later on in Onyx Storm, Theophany and her mother are like foils of each other.
Yeah.
Like maybe magic did cause this in some way because maybe her mother was getting too powerful. It's definitely interesting. I do think that line feels very intentional right in chapter 1. When you look back, you're like, oh, it's right there, like in the first chapter. And it feels like a Rebecca Yarros nugget that there's no way it's going away.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I agree. I do think there is something Venin related that potentially had caused that.
Or, to be my own devil's advocate.
Sure.
We know Rebecca Yarros wanted this character to have the same disorder that she does. And as a writer, she's probably sitting there thinking, how does she have this disorder in a world that doesn't have this disorder?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it really is just the origin story of why she's like this, and it has nothing to do with the plot line whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe it is just she is the way she is because the world made her that way, just like anyone who gets a disorder in our own world.
Yeah. No, I do also think there's an alternate route as well, where the potential Venin attack has more to do with the ultimate power that Violet ends up receiving.
Right. I mean, I have always been curious during this series. It almost feels like we're walking the line of, was there a prophecy about Violet? Because there are some sentences sometimes along all 3 books that you're kind of like, did they know that she was going to be?
Specifically.
Yeah. So, I mean, which we'll get into later on as we go through all the books, but it's definitely an interesting question. It's one of those questions that still has not been answered, which is so fun coming right off the first chapter of the first book.
It really throws you in, and I love it. I do. So then right off the bat, Mira goes for Violet's rucksack, and she's just tearing it apart, throwing things across the room. And what do we find? The Fables of the Baron. And the foreshadowing is so real. And Yarros is so amazing at the foreshadowing, as we've already kind of like sprinkled in already, but she drops these cosmic breadcrumbs like a pro, and we get the gem of a line. Maybe it's childish, just a collection of stories that warn us against the lure of magic and even demonize dragons. But it's all I have left. Like, what?
Hello? I cannot get over this line, because we know Rebecca Yarros never goes the direction we think she's going. We all think dragons are like good. They tether you to the magic in a correct way. And this line makes me want to throw things.
Everything. Throw everything.
Wait, what? Also, because we know everything in their history has been erased and recorded so many times, it's like, where does this story come from that the dragons are being demonized? I'm like, wait, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
Well, and then we find out later that this isn't even in the archives. This book technically doesn't exist. Like,
it doesn't exist.
That's even more crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So do we think that the dragons are actually the villains at the end? Like, or do we think a twist like that is coming? No, do we think like a twist like that is coming in books 4 and 5?
No, I don't.
Really?
I don't.
Then where does the line come from?
Okay, here's my quandary. Why did the first dragons bond the first humans? And I think it's because they needed the human-dragon symbiosis situation. So I don't think
the words.
Yeah, like I don't think they're the villains in the story because of that.
No, I think we all see the Venom as like Voldemort, pure evil. There's no gray area there. But I think later on in the series, it's going to turn into more of that gray area where like the dragons aren't as good as we have always thought they were. I think,
which we know some aren't.
No, but I also think like Tarn isn't like that.
No,
we have found out now that there's a hierarchy to dragons and that information is even kept from them. It has always bothered me a bit about what is the reasoning that the dragons are split really between fighting the Venom and lying to everyone. It doesn't totally make sense. And it feels like because there's information missing. And I feel like it's not good information.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the moral gray area is kind of like a theme here. Even when I was summarizing the chapters, sometimes the things she does, she struggles with, is it the morally right thing to do, the lawful thing to do, the right thing for the long term, the right thing, you know what I mean? So there is a gray area. And I think that's such a huge part of any beautiful, full, nuanced character, whether it be dragon, human, or otherwise. I think maybe there is sort of a morally gray area for the dragons because perhaps the dragons have the dragon's best interest in heart and not the human's best interest in
heart. Which
I
think is factual.
You know what I mean? And so I think there could totally be a twist about their true motives, but I think that both things can exist at the same time. And I think that I'm hoping that that's kind of where the romance also comes into play because the truth can be both things. Tarn and Darna, come on. But I think it exists somewhere in between.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me because it's like when you look at Coda versus Tarn, it's like, I don't trust Coda. On the overall story of good versus evil with the Venom and stuff, what does that really mean?
Yeah, I mean,
especially with this line of this story demonizes the dragons when it's all about magic and where it comes from and all those things. So I feel there's facts about that story we don't have yet. And I think there's going to be a twist coming.
Yeah. I guess the theory would be, what if the Venom aren't the corrupted ones? And what if they just sort of tapped into the magic that dragons didn't want humans to have access to for whatever reason?
I still think they're corrupted because they lose. They're definitely.
I mean,
they're pretty evil.
I think, but that's the thing. I think everybody is to a certain extent, whether they know it or not.
Well, here's the thing, and I think we'll get, oh my gosh, we're going off so far on a tangent, but stay with us for a minute. I think something that's really interesting that I think everyone assumes is when Xaden turns Venom, that all of a sudden he's going to stop like having the goals that he's always had, but that doesn't seem to be the case in Onyx Storm. He still has the same goals of protecting Violet and protecting Tyrandor, even though he's losing his ability to feel emotions.
Yeah.
And I think people just assumed, oh, you're Venom, you're automatically evil. It's like, well, he may not be able to feel his emotions as well as he once was, but he still isn't all of a sudden going to be like, I'm on the Venom's side killing civilians.
Yeah, right.
Like it doesn't, it doesn't, those two things don't equal. You know what I mean? He's still not like this power hungry, like I want to destroy the universe the way that the other Venom are.
Yeah. I think it's all about every character or being sort of like long game play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what the gray area of like what they have to do now for their for the end game, long game kind of thing.
Totally. Well, let's go back to Violet's room.
Go back to chapter 1 in Onyx Storm.
She has packed, and Mira is going full big sister mode, going through everything. And Mira gives Violet a boatload of advice. First one, don't die. obviously. And especially stay away from Xaden Riorson, the rebellion leader's son. But it's the dragon scale armor that she gives Violet that steals the show and is so necessary because Violet definitely would be dead without it.
Also, I love this little just like thing because they always talk about how smart Violet is. And this is coming from Mira, and that's fucking genius.
Yes.
She's clearly also raised by a scribe, everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of forethought on Mira's part. We appreciate it.
Well, yeah, she wouldn't be where she is in this series if she didn't have that. Yeah.
So then we get that killer line from Mira saying, keep your eyes on the stones ahead of you and don't look down. Arms out for balance. If the pack slips, drop it. Better it falls than you. And we all know that Violet will pass this on to Sloane later, stepping into the big sibling role for Liam, and just cue the tears. I can't talk about that right now, though. I can't. We're not there yet.
No,
nope. Okay, we're skating right past it. All right.
Yeah.
Whew. We then meet our new BFF that trumps all other romantasy BFFs, Rhiannon Mathias.
Rhiannon. She's the best.
She really is. And the unfortunate regular bro sidekick, Dylan. And poor Dylan. We find out lots more fun little tidbits about Basgiath during this, the Writer's Quadrant, and so on through them meeting and their conversations. I love the way Rebecca Yarros does world building. It feels very natural and not just like all this information. It's from the way she converses with her classmates and her learning scenarios. It's also her own scribe habits.
Yeah.
It's just really well done, and it feels very part of the character development as opposed to just being like, here's information.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think we also get so much information when she's trying to center herself and calm herself and like relays facts. It's so cool because it's such a neat writing tool that she uses.
I agree. I love that that's her calming method, is just reciting facts. But then as a reader, you're just like, oh, I need to know all this. Thanks. Violet then demands to see Rhee's shoes and insists that they switch one boot each so that Rhee has better traction on the parapet. This is early on, showing us just how compassionate Violet is, which is something her Professor Kaori will point out later. Mm-hmm. She's known this girl for 5 minutes and already feels the need to save her life. This is really what true writers should be all about, and not just the power and status that they seek, but saving the lives of everyone in their kingdom and defending the powerless. But we all know a lot of writers aren't here for those reasons.
Nope.
No. So let's talk about that moment at the top of the turret. We're only in chapter 1, and guess who's already there waiting for us? Mr. Tall, Dark, and Vengeful himself, Xaden Riorson. The second, thank God for him. The second their eyes meet, Violet describes his expression as cold, unadulterated hatred. She literally says she can taste the loathing coming off him like a bitter cologne. Like, okay, drama king, but also we love it.
Love it so much.
We get this delicious little visual standoff where Violet hits him with, your father killed my older brother, seems like we're even. And Xaden, stone cold, goes, hardly. Because he knows that Brennan is, spoiler alert, alive. And now, knowing how close Xaden and Brennan are, like actual ride or die brother in arms, we are really supposed to believe Xaden would have ever laid a hand on Brennan's baby sister? Like, absolutely not. That boy made up his mind about Violet way earlier than we realized.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I find it very hard to believe that if he ever went back to Orisha and was like, yeah, so I killed your sister, Brennan wouldn't immediately murder him.
Correct.
What?
Yeah. I mean, okay.
And then mend him. And then murder him.
And then
mend him.
Murder him again.
Mending and murdering. But here's where this part also gets super interesting. Xaden notices that Violet switched boots with Rhee, something no one else would have caught, but he does, and most likely using his signet, spoiler alert, which we know lets him see intentions. He clocks in that moment that Violet is willing to risk herself for a complete stranger. His hands relax. He says, interesting. And you guys, I think this right here is the moment he decides he's not going to kill her.
I totally agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
When he, like, later on in Iron Flame, they're in fighting and he's like, why haven't you asked me when I decided not to kill you?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is the moment he's wanting her to ask
Yeah,
about.
absolutely.
Yeah.
His
But, like,
hatred, his doubt,
yeah.
everything fades. He sees that she's not her mother and that she's something else entirely. And then, boom, Dylan goes flying off the parapet, and we're all like, wait, wasn't he giving like sidekick energy?
Oh,
He's fucking
Dylan.
gone.
Did we just
That's
bond
it.
with Dylan?
Fucking Dylan. He's gone. Like, what? Nope. Rebecca Yarros said, I'm not afraid to kill off some bitches, and made it very clear what kind of story we're in for.
I do love that she does that right off the bat. You're
Right
like,
off the bat, it's great.
oh.
She's like, here's
so
this sweet boy. He's dead.
Yeah.
This is
like,
more
"Aw."
Game of Thrones style fantasy. Okay, no one is
Absolutely.
safe. Okay.
No one is safe. No one is safe. Yeah.
Well, it looks like now it's Rhiannon and Violet's turn to shine. Xaden drops the line, you better get going, Sorengale. And honestly, we're all living for it.
I'm living for it.
And here's the thing. Xaden definitely knew that Jack Barlow was trying to throw Violet off the parapet. And he was already low-key playing bodyguard for her. Naturally, Violet trips, bangs her knee, because of course she does. And then enters fucking Jack Barlow, you guys, the human embodiment of irritation. He throws a candidate off of the parapet and he's racing
so much
towards Violet. So then she tries to run the rest of the way. She lands back on the inside at the end of the parapet and she turns with a knife aimed straight for Jack Barlow's balls. Iconic.
Iconic. Love her.
Imagine if she had just offed him right then and there. We could have saved ourselves so much drama.
Imagine, truly imagine that.
But she can't. Instead, we get the beginning of a classic vendetta and Jack's personal mission to make Violet's life absolute hell.
Yep. Whew. But Violet made it across the parapet. Everyone take a shot.
Oh, yes. Praise be.
Violet cannot believe she's alive, but we can, because then the series would be over. Her and Rhys celebrate, and who else comes bounding up to her but none other than Dane Atos, former best friend and boy next door love interest, who is a second year in the writer's quadrant. And he's freaking the fuck out to see her, and not in an excited way. She's supposed to be a scribe, goddammit!
What a welcome.
He scurries her up to his room so she can wrap her knee because he's extremely familiar with Violet's tendency to break bones and dislocate all of her limbs.
So after that, Violet reunites with Rhiannon, our girl, our anchor, and we're also introduced to Tara, who we'll later find out is Rhee's on-again, off-again girlfriend. Right off the bat, we get a teeny tiny blink and you miss it line that ends up being a major piece of foreshadowing for Onyx Storm. While they're waiting in formation, Tara leans in and whispers, I've heard this position is just a stepping stone for him. He wants Sorengale's job. Then General Melgren's. Okay, dun dun dun. Looking back now, knowing what's coming, this is such a loaded little moment because we find out much later that Commandant Panchek is not just ambitious, he is dangerously power hungry. And he doesn't get General Sorengale's job after Lilith dies, which probably lights the fuse for his betrayal of Navarre in Onyx Storm. So yeah, he's been playing the long game on this one since day one. And Rebecca Yarros just planted that seed like a little landmine in the background. Fucking genius.
Yep.
Then we get the sorting. Yes, we're calling it that.
Sorting.
Where's the hat?
Where all the baby cadets are divided into their respective wings. Violet and Rhee land in Dane's squad, which is part of second wing. All seems fine until, surprise, Xaden swoops in and has Dane's entire squad reassigned to fourth wing, his wing, where he's the wing leader.
I mean, second wing just is not a good book title.
It's not. It doesn't have the same ring to it. Fourth wing, second
Somehow.
wing. Like, no, absolutely not. Now, I'm sorry, but what reason did he give for that? Did he walk into the war room and go, hey, I just feel like commanding this specific squad because no reason at all, just definitely not a tiny, fragile blonde girl I'm trying to very hard not to be obsessed with. Like, come on. I'm so curious.
No reason.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm curious to what kind of rationale he gave to convince the other leaders. Did he have to convince them? Was it strategy, politics, or was it just Xaden being like, trust me, and everyone backing off because, well, it's fucking Xaden.
I
He's
know.
like, you're gonna
I want to be
fucking
a
do
fly
this.
on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to be a fly on the wall for this. Like, how did he randomly just be like, yeah, you're going to do, like, do they really just listen to him because he's so intimidating
I mean,
without questioning
maybe.
it?
I don't know. But
Or are they
either
just
way,
like, you know what? If he wants to kill this bitch, sure.
fine. They're like, whatever.
They're like,
We're not going to get in the middle.
You have your reasons, Xaden.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, whatever. Either way, from that moment on, Violet is officially under his command. And whether she
under
real-
him and
under,
another
under
way later.
him.
he is
had to make the
under
joke.
his command. And whether she realizes it or not, the game just changed.
Yep. Then, whoo, here we go. The dragons. They make their grand entrance, and suddenly the whole world somehow feels a little bit more dangerous than just walking across the parapet. And I
Sure does.
absolutely love how on a reread we get that little nugget of how the whole dragon show is just for drama, just to scare
love
the
it.
absolute
It's amazing.
shit out of the cadets. Taryn has that little quip, I do not participate in parlor tricks.
He's amazing. I love him so much.
He's so funny. And
So
basically,
funny.
he's just like throwing shade while still being a badass. And I just can't get enough of Taryn. But
I do remember when I was describing the book to Allie before she read it, I was like, you're going to love this book. The dragons are so funny. And I remember you looking at me
She
like,
did.
what the fuck is she talking about? What do you mean the dragons are funny?
They're so funny. And
I was like,
mean,
okay, Alex.
it's like
You're like,
it's
what are
the
you
way that they
smoking?
communicate.
All right.
Okay.
This is when the drama unfolds. Cadets freak out, they scream, and literally run to their death. Immediately incinerated by fiery, dramatic death. Lovely. And
Lovely.
honestly, nothing says welcome to your new rider life quite like killing people the first day.
Yeah.
Now,
Like that,
Sigale's entrance, she lands right in front of Violet, and she is definitely sizing her up. The dragon knows something is going on, and she can feel Violet's energy. So what is Sigale already reading between the lines about Violet at this point? She probably senses Violet's deep connection to magic and that spark within her that is not quite like other people. You know, maybe Sigale is already getting a whiff of Violet's potential bond.
A whiff.
A whiff. Or can she
Just a
just
little whiff.
feel the weight of Violet's destiny? Like, this one's got more going on than she knows. And it's just that kind of vibe where Sigale is like, I'm watching you.
I think it's less to do with Violet and her destiny and anything having to do with her bond. I think it's more like shares Xaden's head and she's like, you are my writer's enemy and I am fucking
Absolutely.
watching you.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's also the whole thing of like, you are my writer's enemy, but also like I'm
Who he has a
reading
boner
his
for.
mind. But I'm like, yeah, exactly. Are
Yeah.
you friend or foe? Is it going to be like an anger fuck? Like, what's happening here? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
are we? Yeah.
What if she's like, so you're Brennan's sister?
Oh, well, that too. I mean, I
that
think
too, because
I
she
think
doesn't
it's
like
all of the
Brennan. He
above.
says that.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, she's
It's
never
all of the
liked
above.
me.
Yeah, it's all of the above. I think she's
I
just
think it
like,
is.
I can't kill you right now, but
she's like, I see you and I could kill you if I wanted to, but not
Yeah.
today.
I'm letting you live. You're lucky. You're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get so many strong female characters in this book, including in the dragons. Like, Taryn
Yeah,
is a
absolutely.
force to be reckoned with, and yet he's still like Sigale.
Beholden to his part. Yeah.
No,
He
I
still listens to Sigale.
I'm way
Like,
more afraid of Sigale than I am of Taryn.
Absolutely.
For
Sigale
sure.
is definitely the scary one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that for her.
Me too. I love it.
The next morning, we start the day with what will become commonplace at Basgiath, the death roll.
Oh God.
Yep. So why do we think Rebecca Yaros has the system in place to honor the dead? Do we feel like it's lacking? What's her narrative here, especially now that we know the Flyers' feelings about their quote-unquote death call-in?
Well, okay. So here's where I kind of go into Rebecca's history because her husband is in the military. And so even with Pancheck, I think about like, ooh, I wonder if this is like kind of loosely based on a character in his life. And also, I wonder if the death rolls are basically just some form of information that her husband was receiving daily when he was out in the military. It's like, who died today? And this is all we get to do for them.
Well, yeah, maybe. Because so, like, I've read every book Rebecca Yarros has ever written, guys. Our book Psycho, everybody.
Yes.
Highly
Yes.
recommend. But her main contemporary romance series, that was her first big series. All of the men in the series are military and is very much inspired by her life because her husband is a helicopter pilot and all the guys in the series are helicopter pilots and they meet at training.
They're dragon riders.
They're dragon riders. Exactly. 100%. I love the parallels so much. But yeah, I know she does gain a lot of experience and things like that from her own experience. And in those series, she talks a lot about how it's like a hierarchy of notifying the families and things like that, of like who's allowed to know first. In that series, you know, someone gets hurt and the way it works, like the men who even knew he was hurt weren't allowed to go home and tell the wives until the wives were notified and things like that. It was
Yeah,
like
that's true.
They call it like a blackout or something, where it's like they're not allowed to have contact until the military has contact with those people.
Yeah.
So I could see it kind of being the inspiration of like, yeah, you just get a list of names because you're on a need to know basis, essentially, unless you're that person's person.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I think it also is just a really great storytelling tool of setting the tone for constant danger and mortality. I think it humanizes the loss.
You're just a number.
It's a world building, like masterstroke. It's basically like, without having to talk about all of these things that happen and all of these people that die and how they die, here's just a list of all of them that died yesterday or today. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, it fuels Violet in a way too, because she's hearing this and she's becoming more determined that she's going to stay alive. And so it's just kind of a little subtle commentary on the cruelty and toxicity of this place
and of war.
Yeah.
And
which they're actively fighting, even though it doesn't seem like they are, but the looming threat is constantly there that they are at war.
But I do love that as a foil in book 2, we get the Flyers who they're in the same war. They're actually in a worse war, because they're actually the ones facing the venom, and they don't treat their soldiers that way. They're way more humane. They cry during the death roll. They scream. They're not stoic. They show their grief. And I love the foil in the story, once we get into it, of questioning, is there a right way to handle losing people in war, is almost what it feels like. Because both have merit.
Yeah, like why are they keeping Basgiath numb?
Right, but like Violet points it out of, you know, if she wasn't numb, she wouldn't be able to stand up and keep going and keep fighting. Like when Liam died, she's like, I had to get up and keep fighting for my life, and it taught me that. But also, on the other hand, not grieving those people does feel very inhuman. And like, why are we not screaming and crying when someone we know and love died? Why are we just reading their name?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, again, that moral gray area that exists, that's just differentiating different people and how they've handled the entire, world. In this way.
Agreed.
So Dane finds their squad and gives them their directions for the day. And we get introduced to our favorite freckly sweetheart, Sawyer.
Sweet Sawyer.
Oh, sweet Sawyer. I love him so much. I love that Rebecca had one of the core 4 be a repeat. I love it. She is so good at showing all these characters having different backgrounds. Like, it just shows an extra layer to the storytelling about the different types of people who may be in other walks, who could be looked down on. We know she loves an underdog. I mean, our main character has a disorder where her bones break. So Sawyer ends up being we know later on in the top squad with them, with the most powerful riders, even though he was a repeat and people look down on him for that. And I just love that she boosts these characters up all the time. It's not just Sawyer, it's not just Violet, it's Jasenia, who is someone who only signs, who's deaf. I love all of these things that she does in the story that aren't just being diversity in a skin color way, it's diversity in all walks of life kind of
absolutely.
way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I feel like I don't see that often in storytelling. Someone being so conscious of diversity in every form. 2 seconds later, we also get introduced to our favorite LGBTQ plus Riddick.
Yes. Riddick.
Yeah. Talk about that inclusivity. Once
Love
again. Her representation across the board, phenomenal. I love that, like we just said. It's also, here's our sexual orientation, like king. He will sleep with anything that moves.
He's like, I see you as a person. Want to bang?
So Violet hears a bird call, classic. And it turns out it's Dane secretly summoning her for one of his daily check-ins to make sure she's still breathing. And I say secretly in quotes because this man is not slick. At all. Zero game. During their little covert chat, Dane tells her that leadership thinks the real reason their squad got moved to Fourth Wing is because Xaden wants her dead.
Duh.
Which is hilarious in hindsight because we now know that's literally the opposite of what's happening. Xaden's not trying to kill her. He's watching her back, whether he'll admit it or not. The fact that everyone thinks he's plotting her murder when he's basically plotting her survival is just chef's kiss.
Plotting her survival. Excellent.
And then we get what I think is the very first time Dane accidentally taps into Violet's memories. The moment goes like this. Dane steps forward and cups my face, his thumb stroking over my cheekbone in a soothing motion. Super tender, super sweet, except no. Because right after that, he casually drops the bomb that this soothing little face cupping moment is actually when he accesses her mind.
Well, he doesn't tell her that, but the fact that he brings it up right afterwards is a little... Why were you thinking about that?
Yeah, why are you thinking about reading? Yeah. So to me, there are like two big tells that this is the first time that he uses his signet like this. One, he immediately follows it up with that, like, oh yeah, by the way, my signet lets me see memories after I just touched your face. Like, cool. Just gonna like slide that under her, like touching her brain. And like two, the very next time they're in a similar moment, he starts to cup her face again and then stops himself. He literally lets his hand fall, which to me screams, I know what I did last time and I probably should do it again.
Guilty. 100%.
I agree.
100%.
Where he's
guilty
like,
as charged.
Also, what do we think he saw?
Do we think it's kind of like a Midas touch? Can he just touch someone's face without reading their mind? Is he forever tortured with never being able to touch someone's face without reading their mind?
I don't think that. I just think he's only a second year and it's not fully trained.
Yeah, I think so.
So like he says it
like an accidental, whoop.
Yeah, he says it in Iron Flame that the first time he did it with her was on accident. And I think this is the accident. This is it. I think as he obviously gets more trained as a writer, he will be able to touch people's faces without reading their memories. Yeah. But he's not a pro. I mean, remember, like, think about Iron Flame with Violet and her lightning wielding ability. She is not good at aiming at all. Like, you know, he's no expert here.
Sure. Yeah.
Then after this moment, they head back out into the rotunda and Violet catches Xaden watching them. And he is not hiding it. He calls them out in front of everyone, yelling about how obvious they're being, which begs
jealousy.
The question, why? Why are you jealous? Is he trying to protect her from
He has his hands on his violence.
Like, what's happening? Is he being petty and dramatic for fun? I think it's all of the above.
Yeah,
petty and dramatic.
100%. And you know, Segale is in his head being like, "That's mean, even for you."
yeah. I mean, I also think that, like, in his way, Xaden's warning her while also claiming his territory.
True.
I think it's all the, and he also was like over the side chats. Like if he's really like on this mission to protect her, he none of that.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. So now things start getting a little bit juicy, and we get that
A little
epigraph.
juicy. The whole
A little
story is
juicy.
so juicy.
I know. I feel like it's one of those things to where it's like every single chapter. It's like, and now this is when it starts getting good, but it's good the whole way through.
Yeah.
But we get a very sneaky little breadcrumb from Yaros that really makes us question everything about Lilith. She doesn't think children of rebellion leaders should be forced to witness the executions.
This is saying that, like, I know this is your plan, but I don't agree with it because
Yeah.
as we know from all the epigraphs, there's a lot of military official correspondence where they have to say, I don't agree with this. Like, I think this is that moment too where she's like, this is my official disagreement. I don't think that this should be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Even though she takes the fall for it in the rest of the series
Yeah.
from everyone else publicly. Yeah.
I feel like it's
Yeah.
not what it's made out to be. And also, this is a huge hint that basically Lilith isn't as cold-hearted as she's made out to be through the entire story. She's human, but she has lines that she won't cross, and she is ruthless, but she later takes on the blame. It's just a move that kind of shows me that she's not the villain that we might have expected her to be, and that is a lot of depth to her character, and we just kind of get a glimpse of the real Lilith behind the Iron Curtain, so to speak. And I don't know. I love it. I'm here for it. I do like Lilith as a character.
Like, I actually remember on my first read of this book being like, oh, that's interesting because her mother seems pretty callous and cold-hearted. So for this to be in here, it has to mean something big.
Yeah.
Of her mom is probably on the good side because it also just shows to me how much Lilith, and we find this out later, she puts children actually above everything else. Like her children, other people's children, family, love, those things are so important to her.
Yep.
When to the outside world, everyone thinks that those things don't matter to her.
No. Yeah.
I think
Just
too,
really
this is also why she fell in love with the scribe. She's like, I can be this person with you. And that's it. He was her safe place. No wonder that she took Violet's dad's death so tragically hard. That's a deep dive for a different chapter. So let's move on to Battle Brief. And let's talk about Professor Devera and Colonel Markham, because one of these is a total badass. It's Devera, obviously. And the other one is a spineless waste of space. In my opinion, it's Markham. If you've read ahead, you know exactly who is who. And Violet is trying to play the silent game by having Ree ask the questions for her. But nice try, sweetheart. It backfires on you big time. And Devera calls her out, tells her you should be asking your own questions. And of course, she was trying to play it cool because that's what Dane told her to do. We figured that was going to backfire, and it did.
Shocking. Dane's advice was utterly useless.
We also get that little nugget from fucking horrible ass Jack Barlow saying, I'm not the one who thinks precognition is a thing. My sweet, sweet, sweet Jack, you have not met Arik Greycastle yet, and on a reread, the line is just so delicious. And the foreshadowing is just mouthwatering, and just wait for it, Jack. Just wait.
Also, like, if we're being really nitpicky,
sure,
technically, General Melgren has a form of precognition. So right off the bat, Jack Barlow, you're a fucking idiot. Go, like, learn something.
Facts.
Like, I definitely think it's I think it's foreshadowing arc for sure. But like, if we're being really nitpicky, technically Melgren also has a type of this signet. So like, literally, fuck off, Jack Barlow. Fuck off.
Exactly.
Well, it's just so annoying because Jack always acts like such a know-it-all, and I think that's what really adds to his character being so just sandpapery.
Yeah, and bullies do. Yeah.
I hate him so much.
Let's talk about the big question that's hanging over us at the end of this chapter. So the wards in Navarre. We know poor Emil is after daggers, and suddenly the wards are fluctuating, and somehow it's allowing flyers in. But the real mystery is who or what is causing the collapse. And I think Violet does kind of start inching in on this thought a little bit. How are the wards wavering? How are the flyers sneaking in? weapons? Are they stealing daggers and causing chaos? Do they need the weapons for things?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that still has not been answered in the series. It feels like on purpose because we get the bonus chapter for when they're at Montserrat when the wards go down. And Xaden and Liam basically get into a fight because Liam thinks that it's their side's fault for the wards going down. And they're like, no, we didn't do this. So who is doing it? It feels like to me almost like the Flyers are taking advantage of the circumstance.
Yeah.
And we also know, too, at the end of this book that, I'm sorry, Colonel Atos made a lure for the Venom to get them there. Excuse me.
Yep.
Hello? Who's
Sir.
working with the Venom? Who's taking down the wards?
Yep.
Who is actually the cause of all of these mishaps? And we still don't really know. And I think it's jumbled on purpose. I think Rebecca Yarros doesn't want us to know.
Yeah, I agree.
We roll right into our first sparring lesson. Lesson being a generous term here because these are not lessons in my opinion. They're just like go at it and see what happens. And we start forming the core four when Violet, Rhee, and Sawyer decide to help each other study. And we love to see it. Obviously, Riddick will come into this core four, but this is the beginnings of it, of them really forming that bond. After Jack is seen breaking the neck of another first year, which Jesus Christ, dude, Violet is called to the mat against Imogen. And for some reason, Immaterio thinks this is a good idea. I have no idea why, other than plot device.
Yeah.
But Imogen screams at Violet that her mother murdered her family, which in all honesty, knowing what we know is kind of true.
Yeah.
But we all know that it's not fair to take that out on Violet. She doesn't agree with her mother. And honestly, I don't even know that her mother agrees with what she did.
Yeah,
so,
I don't think so.
Yeah. Side note, Imogen tries to kill Violet here, and if Violet had not been wearing her armor, she would have been stabbed. I mean, at this point, I don't think Xaden has made it clear to the marked ones that no one can kill Violet.
I agree.
Yeah, I do think, however, this is the catalyst that causes him to do that of like, oh, all the marked ones aren't in my brain.
Yeah.
Maybe I should tell people not to murder her.
Right.
Yeah, I think
because they want to.
The tree situation is where that kind of comes into play, to where he's like, leave her the fuck alone. She's mine.
Yeah.
And Imogen breaks Violet's arm and dislocates her shoulder. It really is amazing how far these two come in their friendship over the series so far. They actually are true enemies to friends.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true. That's
I love it. Yes, actually, even more so, I feel like than even her and Xaden, because Xaden actually never hurts Violet ever.
No.
So I do wonder if in the next book, now that we know Imogen sadly has lost Quinn, her best friend, if her and Violet will become even closer. I do think they will lean on each other a lot because Violet will also probably feel similarly in that she's lost to Xaden too, because even though he's still alive, he's fully Venom and gone.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see them in the next book having this almost like opposites attract.
Yeah.
We are actually the best friend pair. I do think obviously Rhee will always be Violet's best friend, but I do see her and Imogen's relationship becoming even more important.
Yeah, I agree. So after Violet gets wrecked in training, Dane, of course, drags her off to the healer quadrant.
Of course he does.
And this man really has the audacity to try and convince them not to mend her. He actually
fucking
argues,
Dane.
Yeah.
Keep her broken.
Keep her broken. Heal naturally. I'm sorry.
I don't even understand this thought process. I'm going to be totally honest.
How is that even helpful? Like, what part of she has 2 weeks to survive sparring challenges with people trying to kill her makes you think that she needs more pain and downtime? It's giving clueless boyfriend energy. He is many things, but a strategist, he is not.
No.
He is not. So thankfully, we get our first real distinction between healers and menders here. Healers handle typical injuries, while menders, who are dragon riders, can fix anything. Human bodies, objects, you name it. And surprise, surprise, Brennan, Violet's supposedly dead brother, was a mender as well, which foreshadowing much?
100%.
I know. We should have really seen it coming that he was alive, except for that I didn't see it coming at all.
I kind of did. I kind of saw it coming.
What?
I was like, I did. I was like, nah, he's too important. He gave her all the tips and the tools. He's too important. But enter Nolan. He is the top mender at Basgiath and has been patching Violet up for 5 years. This man is practically on retainer. And what I love /hate here is that Rebecca Yarros plays this long game with him, right? We start building trust with Nolan early. He's reliable. He's kind. He actually sees Violet's strength. And then in Iron Flame, that betrayal hurts.
I'm still so pissed.
It hurts because she sets us up to like him. And this is where that starts.
Yeah.
So anyway, Nolan shuts Dane down. Thank God. And mends Violet's shoulder like the absolute professional he is, because obviously she needs to get back out there and survive, not lie around waiting for a miracle. So yes, Dane once again means well, but manages to make a deeply unhelpful decision that could have gotten her killed. It's giving pattern, Dane.
It really is.
He's the worst. He's just the worst.
I mean, he's not, but he is. It's hard. Anyway, so Violet returns to her barracks, and what does she find? A mysterious book hidden under her pillow. But wait, it turns out it's not just any book. It is the Book of Brennan. And hello, Juicy Secrets and Hidden Journal. Mira, the ultimate sister, had a scribe sneak Brennan's journal into Violet's room, and it's filled with all of his hard-earned survival wisdom for the writer's quadrant. And I was sitting here thinking, could this book one day be edited and published? Can you imagine having a survival guide for all of the future writers with all of Brennan's notes and tips? It would probably be a bestseller, right? Anyway, maybe it's a little bit morbid, but I could definitely see it.
No, we want
I
it.
see it too.
We need it.
We need it.
We need it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we get this rule: when someone dies, you're supposed to burn everything that belonged to them. It's all for Malik, they say. But is it really? Are there other reasons at play here? I kind of lean that there's something a little more deep, but we know that some families might want to keep certain things like memories, possessions, or clues about what their loved ones were involved in. But there's more to Malik than meets the eye. I think there's a little bit more than just honoring the dead.
I agree. I mean, I think we know from Onyx Storm the gods are a much bigger role in this world than we thought that they were. And this feels like one of those things of like, what does burning of the things actually mean? Yeah. And I honestly don't even have any theories about it. I really don't.
No.
I don't. But I do feel like it's going to come up in the series at some point of, because they didn't burn all of Brennan's things, was that part of the reason and way that Nolan was able to bring him back?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm curious for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we get to a piece of Brennan's most genius advice. It says, if you know where to look, you can prepare for the hand-to-hand combat challenges that the instructors assign. Mind blown. So the combat challenges, they're not random, as Violet thought, which means that Brennan already knew how to outsmart the system, and you just know that Violet is going to use this to her advantage. Enter her evil genius poisoning plan.
But like, how is he the only person who knows this? How did he figure this out?
He can't be the only
Great
one
question.
that knows it, but he's probably the only one that put it down so that a first year could figure it out.
But maybe this is also a hint of Brennan was also raised by the smartest scribe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of vibe of
course.
it's not just Violet, it's all of them.
Yeah.
So
I buy
her
it.
evil genius poisoning plan is brilliant, and it is dark as hell, which I feel is a trend for her. And she is setting the stage for some very serious moves. And it is the kind of plan that you don't fully appreciate until you see it start to unfold. And it is a game changer for her.
I love this plan for her. And then we jump right into Violet enacting this plan. And she's going about on her midnight stroll to collect her various poisons. I'm obsessed. Climbs up a tree to gather fauna berries, which, yes, I Googled them and they're not real, but she gets stuck up there when she notices two figures appear. Dun, dun, dun. And it's Xaden and Imogen, and whew, our girl's in trouble. More people start to appear, all carrying relics of the rebellion. Violet has encountered a highly illegal meeting of the marked ones, since they're not allowed to gather in groups larger than 3. And also, if they saw her, she'd be dead. A group of 20 marked ones and Violet, let's be honest here. Woo!
Lilith Soaring Gale's daughter.
I have to say, after we find out about that rule, how did no one question that that's a super fucking weird rule
So
to
sus.
put in place?
So sus.
It's so sus. Now
course.
we know it's because it fucks with Melgren's ability to see them plotting, but the
Mhm.
general public doesn't know that. So no one was like, oh, that's weird. Were they just like, yeah, marked ones aren't allowed to have friends.
Yeah, I mean,
They can have 2 friends at a time,
They just didn't care.
and that's it.
I just think they didn't care. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it makes no
right?
sense. Clearly, it's keeping. I think people didn't, say anything about it because most people were like, yeah, they're the bad guys. So
Right.
like,
These
don't
kids.
so like keep them apart because they could cause trouble in groups.
Right.
It's kind of like a commentary on certain groups of people that a lot of other certain groups of people are like, oh, if there's a whole gaggle of people like that, stay away.
Right.
Yeah,
It
fair.
also happens here.
Oh, idiotic though. Like,
So no one's going to fight it because they're like, yeah, you're right. Trouble.
Scary.
but I do think because it's nonsensical is why it's leading Violet to immediately not care about it. You know what I mean? If she's like, I mean,
Yeah.
okay. And now we know Xaden pretty much knows that she's there from the very beginning in the tree.
Mhm.
One of the first lines we get in this sequence is that Violet cloaks herself in shadows, which means Xaden absolutely knows she is there.
Yep.
I love that the way that's described of like she's literally using his own shadows to wrap around herself. And as she sneaks closer, it also says that she sticks to the shadows that wrap around me, which also makes me feel like he's helping her hide. He doesn't want the marked ones to see
why
her.
are
He
you
wants
here?
to deal with her on his own.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
He's like, oh, not yet.
He knows he will not be able to control the marked ones from killing her if they find her.
Yeah.
100%. But I love that on a reread, you're just like, wait, shadows, ah! And then we overhear that they all gather to try and help themselves survive the quadrant, which is amazing. Violet mentioned she really doesn't want to love Xaden being all admirable and shit, but we do. And we get Garrick actually defending not killing Violet for the sins of her mother when the other marked ones demand it. And do I smell a little best friend defending his future best friend's girl action? I think I do.
Little BFF action. Right.
Yep, we know now from Xaden's bonus POVs where we get lots more of Garrick. If you haven't read them, what are you doing with your life? Because Garrick is amazing and we need him way more in the series. Garrick is actually very emotionally intelligent and he's extremely observant. And he notices right from the get-go how much Xaden is into Violet, even though Xaden doesn't know how much he's into Violet.
Sweet friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. He reminds me a lot of, spoiler for Akatar, he reminds me a lot of Cassian. You think he's this brute, big guy who only cares about sparring and whatever, but really he's the most emotionally intelligent character in the series.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
And on our first read, it just flies by, but on a reread, you're like, oh, Garrick's watching out for his bro. I love it.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
Xaden also reminds the marked ones that she is Brennan's sister during this argument, which, by the way, they all know that he's alive, aka the Brennan is going to kick your ass if something happens to her.
Exactly.
I don't think that's an accident. I think he brings Brennan up 100% on purpose.
It's very intentional.
Yeah.
So after the rebel kids wrap up their very illegal little meeting, Violet does the smart thing. She waits. She stays hidden in the shadows until she is absolutely sure it's safe to come down, except it's not, because obviously Xaden is lurking in the dark, and of course he pops out with a knife at her throat. Casual.
I mean, foreplay.
Hello. This is where we find out he is a shadow wielder. And honestly, it just confirms what we already knew. He's the ultimate shadow daddy. Sorry, Reese, but your crown might be slipping. Now, Violet does not back down. She whips out 2 daggers and throws them, one on either side of his head, missing on purpose. It's the definition of don't mess with me, but also I kind of want you to. And then we get one of the best lines in the series. Fascinating. You look all frail and breakable, but you're really a violent little thing, aren't you?
For those not watching on YouTube, I'm wearing my Violent Little Thing sweatshirt today.
Yes. Sir, we are not okay.
Not okay.
Okay, so then after this moment of heat, he tells her to show that move to Jack Barlow to basically scare him off. And Violet is so confused. Like, wait, aren't you supposed to want me dead? Why are you helping me? And it's the first little crack in the enemies to lovers armor. He's assessing her, testing her, trying to figure out if she's going to rat them out for holding a rebel gathering. But instead of threatening her, he's intrigued.
Of course he
We
is.
also get this perfect bit of foreshadowing here when Violet says, "He looks at me like he's trying to see through me, and ice prickles my scalp."
Mm-hmm.
And now that we know how Iron Flame plays out, this line hits completely differently. Rebecca Yarros really sprinkled these little breadcrumbs everywhere, and we just thought it was tension, which of course it also is, but it's also truth.
And an intrinsic ability.
Hello. So, of course, Violet promises not to say anything. She's not a snitch. So Xaden disappears into the night, all cloak and drama, and Violet is left standing there like, what the fuck just happened? Holding her bag of Fonnelly berries and a whole lot of fun questions.
Love that he's like, get into bed before your wing leader knows you're out after curfew. And she's like, you are my wing leader.
Why are you talking about my bed, sir?
It's like one beat. And she was like, wait, you are? Oh my gosh. So the next morning, Violet is still stuck in her Dane fantasy era. I mean, how long can we pretend that this is healthy? But anyway, as they walk to classes, Violet and Dane run into Ree and Tara sneaking out of an empty private dorm room. And I love this for her. Ree is out here living her best life, getting in trouble and just slaying it. But what happens next? Dane, of course, has to have his savior complex thing again, dropping his hand as if he was about to touch Violet's face, only to pull it back, but it was too much for him to handle. Dane.
He knew.
You are trying way too hard.
Go away.
Once again, he tries to convince Violet to ditch her challenge and head to a scribe quadrant instead. Do you ever give up, Dane? We know Violet doesn't want that. She has said to you several times she doesn't want that. Anyway, so next stop is the Dragonkind lecture, where the foreshadowing is very obvious in the best way. And Professor Kaori starts talking about all the different dragon breeds. And then, wait for it, he mentions that there are no rare black dragons that are bonding this year. And sitting here like, hello, Kaori just basically wrote the future of the story in neon lights. And this has to be the sign that Violet's dragon is definitely going to be a black one, right?
100%.
Or that Taryn is going to be somehow involved, even if it's not her dragon. But either way, we were all over here like, you don't just throw that detail in without it meaning something. So then Violet finds out how Brennan supposedly died, and we're hit with the mystery of the siphon. And Naelin tried to bring Brennan back with his siphoning power. But here's the thing. We don't really know that much about siphons yet, even through Onyx Storm. So Kaori gives us the basics. Siphons can absorb power from various sources, such as dragons, riders, you name it, and then can redistribute the power however they want, which I think leaves us with a lot more questions than answers. What does this actually mean? Can Naelin just suck power out of anything? And what's the deal with him trying to bring Brennan back? Did it work? Did he fail? Is Naelin really dead? Because something about the last interaction with Violet really feels like he could be alive in some way. And could Naelin be playing a bigger game here than we realize?
I mean, this is one of those big theory questions out there about the whole series that people constantly are talking about is Naelin dead? How did he resurrect Brennan? How did that all happen? And yes, like you said, we really don't know much about siphons. Other than we've seen Sloane's power work once in the series where she takes Lilith's life force and puts it into the stone. But theoretically, other than that, what do siphons actually do? Jack in the classroom is like, oh, that's such a badass power. Does that mean a siphon, if she touched Violet, could she wield lightning? Is that what it means? Because just moving power from one place to another doesn't sound like a badass ability to me.
Right. That's just a conduit.
That seems like, yeah, like what do you do with that?
A siphon to me is you are moving something from one place into another as opposed to just redistributing it. So I kind of feel like it's into them. And aren't venom kind of siphons?
Kind of.
Yeah.
And which is why Sloane freaks out when she starts channeling for the first time. She's like,
Right.
am I a venom? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Which also
Poor
makes
Sloane.
me think that in terms of the 5-book series, that siphons are going to be so important. Like, I'm just like, wait, can Sloane take the power out of Xaden he stole and put it back in the earth? Is the siphon the key to like all of the things? But like,
I think so. I think
it could be a theory. So many people think that Naolan is a venom. Do we think that Naolan is dead? I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I could see him being venom, but also how have we not seen him in the story up until now? So many people think that Naolan is like the main venom character who's like the big bad whatever, but how have we not seen him in the series? All the venom we have seen, Taryn would recognize him. I just want to point that out of like, he can't be someone we've seen. Taryn would recognize him. Brennan would recognize him. Xaden probably would recognize him. He's not like, he's young enough and in the story in a relative way to, if he has been a venom we've seen, someone in the story would be like, that guy's Naolan. So I don't think he's a venom we've seen, which makes me think he really isn't alive. And I do think maybe he did give his life to save Brennan.
There is something strange about the whole situation, but I don't know what it is.
No, there definitely is. I do think Naolan and Brennan were lovers, like in a relationship.
Absolutely.
Which is the real reason he saved Brennan, not to curry, General Sorengale's favor.
No.
Bullshit that is.
Nope.
Yeah.
I agree with that. For sure.
We don't know anything about Naolan. Maybe Naolan was from Tyrrendor. People talk a lot about how Brennan has runes on his hand. Is that the way that Naolan resurrected him with his siphoning powers? Could be if he was from Tyrrendor and knew the magic of runes. I see that as being something. I don't think it's because Naolan's been venom this whole time. I just don't. Violet's first challenge, right before she's called to the mat, she flings daggers at Jack's head, just like Xaden suggested. This is such a great show don't tell of how, even though she doesn't trust Xaden, deep down, she actually does. Yep. Because she poisoned Oren earlier. Our girl wins her challenge fairly easily, and she does it again the next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. Until one challenge, she doesn't time that poison just right, and Rayma Corey gets too sick to fight in the ring. And because he's definitely been, his words, annoyingly aware of everything Violet's been doing the past few weeks, our man Xaden volunteers to take her to the mat, and her scalp prickles here, and I wonder what the intention was. Every time this happens, I'm like, wait, what is the intention he's reading from her now?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now we get to one of the most delicious chapters so far, and not because we're in Violet's head, but if you've been paying attention to the bonus context Rebecca Yarros has dropped, we also get this scene from Xaden's POV, and let me tell you, it just adds so much more spice. What I love about seeing it from his side is that even Xaden is like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, he's confused, frustrated, probably a little bit obsessed, and you can feel it. He's trying to keep it together, but she's already under his skin. On the mat, he dominates, but not to embarrass her or make a point. He's testing her. He's pushing her limits. He's showing her what she's up against, not just in him, but in this entire world where no one's going to go easy on her. And at the same time, he's showing everyone else that Violet is not someone to underestimate.
Boom.
She is in Fourth Wing now, and Xaden Riorson is paying attention. It's not just a fight, it's a shift, a turning point, and the tension is off the charts.
So Xaden, being the guy who sees beneath the surface, dubs Violet Violence instead of Violet. And it's so perfect. He knows that she's not just a naive cadet that people pin her as. And underneath it all, she's got strength to rise above everybody's expectations and absolutely crush them. Violence fits her because she's got the fire, and Xaden is kind of just the first to recognize it.
Yeah. So even though it's obvious to everyone, especially Dane, who cannot keep his mouth shut,
Yeah.
that Violet is at a major disadvantage going up against Xaden, she holds it together. She doesn't cry. She doesn't beg. She doesn't break. Instead, she digs in. She's fully committed to figuring out how to hold her own against someone way more experienced, way more powerful, and literally built for combat. But what's wild is that she's not afraid of him, like at all. While every other cadet is either terrified of Xaden or trying to avoid eye contact, Violet is right there, standing her ground, not backing down whatsoever. She might be small, she might be undertrained, but she's got this quiet defiance that says, I'm not going anywhere. And I think that's one of the reasons Xaden can't look away.
Completely agree.
And now we know from book 2, he's not just being cruel, he's making a brutal point. No one will go easy on Violet, and kindness at Basgiath is a death sentence. If she wants to survive, she has to stop expecting mercy, and he actually needs her to survive based upon his deal with her mother, the unnamed favor he owed her for letting the marked ones into the quadrant. And I also imagine Brennan, is also a part of this, and that like, please don't kill his sister, and also like protect her a little bit.
This is definitely a turning point for Violet, because up until now she's been relying on her intelligence to survive, and honestly, it served her well. But in this moment, she realizes that being smart isn't going to be enough. Not here, not in the Riders Quadrant. She's going to have to adapt and get tougher. Sharpen not just her mind, but her instincts. She has to learn to use her whole self, her body, strategy, presence, mind as a weapon. And speaking of using her body, this is where things with Xaden start to spark. It's not just intimidation anymore. There's a shift, another shift, this mutual awareness. Mutual awareness.
Consented.
Like a grudging respect. It's like something hotter, simmering, just under the surface that neither of them is naming yet, but they both feel it. So much so that as a reader, you can practically taste it.
It's so hot.
Oh, and once you get his POV, it's game over, because you realize he's been affected by her from the very beginning. She's not just under his skin, she's in his head, and he's already starting to lose control of the narrative he's trying to keep so tightly wrapped at this point.
Yep. So true. And Violet, in that moment, she has an extreme self-awareness saying, you are not attracted to toxic men, telling herself over and over again. And honestly, now that we know about her ex, Halden, like, what a freaking toxic mess he is. And it totally makes sense. And of course, Violet knows that she's kind of attracted to a certain type. And she's been through it before. And so Holden was the prime example of everything that was wrong. And so now she can see it for what it is. She is not just giving a throwaway line. It's Violet realizing her patterns, figuring out how to break them. And she's like, we do not like toxic men. And that is what we call character growth.
Except for that,
issues.
Except for that, she does love toxic men, and she ends up fucking the toxic man.
Dragons and daddy issues.
But he's different.
He's different. I also love that as he's walking away from the mat in the bonus POV, we get Garrick's side of it.
Yeah.
Ever the emotional, intelligent watchdog. And he pokes fun at Xaden because he knows exactly how much Xaden is into Violet, even if Xaden doesn't know it yet himself. Which, we need more Garrick. Oh my gosh.
I love
wait.
this so much.
I love Garrick so much. I love their relationship and their friendship. And every time we get that glimpse of them in the bonus POV chapters, I'm just like, wait, can we just like sprinkle him into the story like 200% more?
Yes. So now we get into Dane. Dane, please. We can't even close out the chapter without him trying to get Violet to run off to the scribe.
The scribe. Run up to the scribe. Run up to the scribe. I love it.
It reminds me
We're
of
the
the
Saucy Squad.
Princess Bride. It reminds me of the Princess Bride. Marriage.
Marriage and the Saucy Scribes.
Sorry.
This isn't helping.
Please. We can't close out this chapter without him trying to get Violet to run off to the scribe quadrant.
Give it a rest, my man. Seriously, the dude just doesn't get it. But here's the thing. This is the moment when Violet finally gets it. She doesn't want to be a scribe anymore. She's decided. She's making it in the Writer's Quadrant, and Dane's opinion, not fucking welcome. This is her path now, whether he likes it or not. You go, girl.
And now let's wrap this up with our favorite segment, Rose, Bud, Thorn, and Trim. The moments that bloomed, the ones that bruised, and maybe a few that could have been snipped right out of the story. Let's pluck at some petals, shall we?
I know this is technically not part of the original book, but my rose is the chapter 9, but from Xaden's point of view. I just love it so much. I am so happy Rebecca Yarros gave us these extra nuggets. I love, but it's not even just because we get to hear Xaden's point of view of what's happening. It's because I love Xaden and Garrick's relationship, and I just want to see more of it. I love it so much. I love we get to see Xaden and Sigale's relationship and the way that she talks to him and the way that he talks to her. Yep. It almost feels like to me, as a reader, you have to read these bonus chapters. Yeah. Otherwise, you're missing part of the relationships in the story.
I agree. This is my favorite part too. And I counted it because I was like, no, this is like happening simultaneously with chapters 1 through 9. It's just so satisfying because it completely reframes how we see him. Like from Violet's perspective, he's cold, dangerous, unreadable, but inside he's already made the choice not to hurt her. He's confused by how drawn he is to her. And we see him fighting it in real time, asking himself why he's doing things that risk exposing his true motives. The stakes are really high here, and his scenes with Garrick and Sigale show how loyal and also how isolated he is, and carrying the weight of this rebellion while also trying to stay like emotionally detached and completely failing. It's not just that he like respects Violet's strength. It's that she shakes something loose in him that he just didn't see coming. And from the moment he notices her giving the boots to Rhiannon, you feel this shift in him, and the tension is mutual. The stakes are higher than they look, and the slow burn is just really something else. Nailed it.
What about you, Allie?
Mine is the Xaden sparring match situation.
But from Violet's POV, basically.
From Violet's POV. So the opposite one. Because like she's so mad, but it's also so great because he does not coddle her. And this entire time she has been coddled by Dane. And he really pushes her to be better despite her not seeing it that way in that moment. And it only continues. Like this is like the initial scaffolding, you know, like he's trying to protect her in a way that she can protect herself. And he's like, you're not going to get better unless you are being challenged. And that just continues to happen. I just really like to see it because even though she thinks his intentions are not what they are, like we eventually see that his intentions are actually very good and that he's been helping her even though she doesn't realize that yet.
Yeah. Here's the thing, ladies. If you're in a relation, and boys, if you're in a relationship and the person you're with doesn't want to make you a bigger baddie, then he's not the person for you.
Yeah, fair.
True. I also want to point out that Xaden, out of everyone in this story during sparring, is actually the only person teaching anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the other sparring matches are literally just like, I want to beat the other person down to the ground. I don't feel like they're ever learning anything. He's literally like, you should stab me here. You should do this. You should do that. And I love just seeing like, oh, this is what teaching also looks like.
He's a very good teacher.
Yeah. I mean, we get Professor Zaddy later.
Yes.
Zaddy.
Also, I mean, this is also kind of like a hot scene, you know?
Oh, so
it just is. What do we think for Thorns?
I mean, I don't know whose Thorn isn't Dane Atos in these chapters.
Yeah, mine is Dane.
Yeah, he's fucking Dane Payne. You know what I mean?
Like Dane Payne. I love that.
Yeah.
Trying, like I don't think he's trying to do it, but he makes Violet feel so inferior and basically makes her feel like she can't do the writer's quadrant, even though she's like continuously like, I'm not going to die. I didn't die. I'm not going to die. I didn't die. She's figuring it out. She is creative as hell at figuring it out. Meanwhile, he's like, you got to go. I got to get you out. You can't do this. You're going to break. And she's like, bro, leave me alone.
Yeah, he's a master projector. He's projecting his own doubts onto her and just fucking slowing her down. Go away.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like obviously when we brought up Jane the first time, it's like cut him some slack. But by the third or fourth time he's begged her to leave, you're just like, dude, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, you're killing me. You're killing me.
Like she has fully established to you that she is going to stay. Like, drop it.
Yep. Enough is enough.
Did anybody have anything that they wanted to trim?
Absolutely not.
And I refuse. This is my favorite series of all time since I read Harry Potter as a child, and I refuse to cut anything from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. This single-handedly got me into the genre, so I can't.
Yeah.
And I won't.
And I won't.
Yeah. I wrote for my notes, I'm going to pass.
I'm going to pass on that one.
So what about buds?
For me, the bud is Siphons getting introduced during these chapters and knowing we still 3 books later, you know, it's still a bud for me. So, which is a pretty, you know, excellent bud overall. It's not just for this book or book 2, it's for the overall series of just, I still don't understand totally what the siphon ability is. Because when you look at it, it's like Naolan had Tairn as his dragon, which means he had that level of lightning wielder type power that everyone was envious of, but he was a siphon. But what did he actually do? If he siphoned magic from Kaori, could he project? Like, is that how it works? We still don't know. And I cannot wait to find out.
Yeah. I totally get that. Mine is watching Violet come into her own, realizing that she is going to survive and then not only just survive, but also thrive. And it's kind of the literal butt of a feeling that she is capable and she starts growing into that capable person. And I think it's really cool and I like seeing it. And we keep seeing it through all 3 books.
Yeah, we do. I mean, beautifully written, beautiful storytelling. I think my butt is in this section. I mean, obviously we've read all of the books, but is the rebel kids like secret meeting and Xaden's deal that he has made, and the political undertones are just so juicy and we're clearly being set up for something much bigger. So if I was just reading chapters 1 through 9, it would be the idea that there's a resistance bubbling under the surface at this crazy war college, right? At Basgiath. Like, yes, please. I can't stop reading.
Right, because even though we don't know at that point that they're actually rebelling and helping Poor Meal, the fact that they're meeting at all says we don't totally care about the rules.
Yeah, there's definitely a resistance, and it's beautiful.
And they're just there to help, which is cool.
Well, that's it for chapters 1 through 9 of Fourth Wing.
We will be back next week to see just how much hotter and deadlier things get in chapters 10 through 20.
Our girl is hanging on by a thread. The stakes are sky high. And just when you think you know who to trust, you don't.
Until then, keep your quills steady and your enemies guessing.
If you're loving the drama, the danger, and all that delicious tension, don't forget to subscribe, drop a fiery review, and share the pod with your fellow dragon babes.
Saucy Scribes.
Out.
Out.
Saucy Scribes.